Do you think that the associations, and it's not all of them, right? I don't want to generalize them, but some like that they are struggling a little bit to provide that value, the way that they're coming across in a bit of their sales approach, the sponsorships that they're offering. I personally, just hearing you say this, like, I hate the sales approach, which is, hey, sign now. It's like a little pressure. And I would love if they were just like, hey, we're going to give you 3 weeks after the show. Yeah, you don't have all your data. Yeah, you don't have all your return yet, but you should have a bit of a gut instinct. And we want to allow for that 3 weeks. I think it would be a little more authentic. But I think that they are struggling with this sort of new value proposition that events
Yeah.
have shifted towards. They haven't really shifted yet. So I'd love to get your thoughts on like the shift in events, value proposition they're offering, and then essentially like sponsorships and just kind of the way it's working right now.
Yeah, and I can speak from my experience. I definitely agree with you there. I think there's a lot of third party events. There is a cooling off period, right? Even when you resign, whether that's before you get on
Yeah.
site or on site before the show wraps, there is a cooling off period to really let people think. But I think the hurdle that I've experienced is you give your sentiments of what sponsorship level you would like to come in or rebook for, and they kind of plan that out. And there's only so many sponsorships at each level that if you don't really commit to the one that you really need, really think you have funding for, you might lose out on that opportunity. Two, I do agree with you. There's a little bit of a staleness when it comes to the value prop or the ways that you can sponsor or the sponsorship packages
Yeah.
themselves. I think, as human beings, we get in the habit of being in the same old rut versus, pausing for a beat or and figuring out how can we be innovative? How can we do something new and really staying fresh? There's definitely, obviously, especially coming out of the pandemic, a demand for in-person engagement. So I totally believe in the value of events. There's nothing like that person-to-person engagement. We're seeing it right in the numbers from all of these third-party events, but it's really, more and more, I'm sure most folks on this call, you're getting pressured, you're getting asked, where's the data? What are results? How are we going to measure? So it's not just subjective or anecdotal at this point. So I need to be able to sign and commit to a sponsorship package where I'm going to be able to actually have data, not just generic numbers or anecdotal thoughts, etc. Like it really tells me something about interest level, buying behavior, things like that, versus just I want to put my name, our company name on a lanyard. That, brand awareness is great, but
Yeah.
I can't measure that other than to say 40,000 people got a lanyard. 50,000 people
Mhm.
got a lanyard. I think there are some events that are able to do bespoke packages or get a little creative. But for me, it's really showing up in ways that align with our business and marketing objectives. We really think about what we want to say. Do we have something of value to bring to those folks? What do we want them to take away? And then ultimately, how are we going to measure that?
Yeah, I think I'd love to get your thoughts on how you decide on sponsorships, right? I think that's
Yeah.
something that we get asked a lot. It's a lot of conversations that I've had either with our clients or with people from the show. It's a very common question, right? Like what's like how do you sponsor? Which do you sponsor? How do you decide where you're deploying capital? Is it worth it? Is it I mean gosh, you go on forever. So what do you have any kind of like tells or signs or things that you look for on essentially where you put your sponsor dollars?
I mean, I think the easy decision making is when you see amazing results, right? You exceeded your
Yeah.
targets or hit your targets. You had a good relationship with the event
Mhm.
itself. You have a positive feedback from across the business, top down, your cross functional business partners. That's an easy decision, right? No
Yeah.
brainer. I think the decision there is, do we go at the same investment level or do we enhance and elevate and commit to more funding? I think that's the question for those events. I think there's a sliver of events where you have to show up because it's a strategic partner, or what it would say if you didn't show up, more than what you
Mm.
might get out of it. So there's that. And then I think there's a category of events where you might have to dig into it more, and it might have performed well in certain areas, whether that's customer meetings or session attendance or just brand awareness. But as far as like top of the funnel, maybe not as well.
Yeah.
And you really just have to assess what are the business priorities. And I always just bring it back to the North Star, right? At the end of the day, events is a vehicle for the marketing organization, for the business. So it really needs to align to those North Stars. And it's not about what Holly wants to do or what my event team wants to do. It really
Mhm.
needs to be aligned to those North Stars.
So a couple of things you said there I like that I kind of want to get into. One is North Star. You're not the first person I've heard use that term. And I think a lot of like really savvy event marketers I've talked to, they talk about North Star. They have one, they understand it, everything. They're not like just throwing darts at the wall. Like they know what
Yeah.
that North Star is. So when they're making decisions, it's like when people say that they've made a first principle decision. Your North Star tends to kind of drive what your first principles are. So you're making proper decisions. So I just want to reiterate that because I love what you said. And I think it's super important for people. My next question is like, when you're talking about sponsorship, is there any like, have you ever asked for a different type of sponsorship? Have you ever tried to create your own? Tell me about that. And then next piece of this is tell me a little bit about like, are there any changes you would make? Like if you were an association, you were trying to get creative, are there anything different you would offer?
Yeah, so to your first question, definitely have had a third party event where we worked with the event contacts, sales contacts, and also their content lead on creating a bespoke package. Specifically, the event was Mobile World Congress Barcelona during my tenure at Palo Alto Networks. We had sponsored the event, showed up with a stand, which they call in Europe a booth when they is what they call it in America, and had some speaking opportunities. That event pre-pandemic had 100,000 plus individuals that attend. It's pretty large. And it was a first for us, but there was a desire by our 5G security team to be there. Huge opportunity for us. So we went in, and I think the event yielded enough positive results and business impact, specifically around pipeline acceleration and influence and customer engagement, that we worked with the organizers to create a bespoke package. So it ended up being labeled the security headline sponsor. And so that yielded a certain amount of sessions across certain stages and within a certain aspects of their program. One was they were targeting that kind of C-level CISO audience for a summit invite only. And so we had main stage presence for that, obviously branding, heavily
Yeah.
promoted. We had a competitor on our heels to take it away from us after the first year and re-signed, and then worked with the contacts again to kind of fine tune that bespoke package based on some feedback from the team, from our executive
Yeah.
leadership of what worked and didn't work. So it was great that they had that. I will say that that event is so widely attended and popular. They have limitations what they can do or willingness, because they know they can get people to take, they know that there's another competitor to Palo Alto Networks that will come in and snatch it, and they're able to get those sponsorship commitments and investment dollars. Like it's a no-brainer. They're almost bursting out of the seams, but nice that even though basically we're beholden to them, because they have so much demand, that they're still willing to have that conversation with us year over year. I was going to say, into your second question about if we're seeing events kind of get more creative, I think some. I think it
Mhm.
depends on the event. So at Akamai, under the third party events portfolio that I manage with a team of mighty and strong, skilled event managers, I think one who's on this call, we manage across the security business, cloud computing, and the legacy business, which is carrier media. So each of the events is slightly different. I think there is a uniqueness when it comes to cloud events. There's more personality, I feel. There's
Mhm.
more fun factor elements. There's unique sponsorship opportunities, whether that's a lounge or a networking party or some cool branding. There's just difference I see in cloud events than maybe traditional cyber or security events. I hope the trend continues where people are looking for unique opportunities. I think what I have done experience at Palo Alto Networks and at Akamai to kind of work around those limitations within event and not necessarily be handcuffed to just the sponsorship or MPO opportunities is really think about a blended strategy, right?
Mhm.
So what can we do around around the conference itself as it relates to our sponsorship components, but
Mhm.
what can we do off the show floor to really enhance and dominate our presence at a specific event?
Yeah. I love that last piece. We've talked a lot about that, right? About kind of what goes on outside of the show floor. It's gotten more and more popular, and people are starting to view an event not as just a single element, but as kind of like a
Yeah.
moment, right? Like not just a single moment in time, but like year round, inside the event, outside the event, which is really good.
Yeah.
The sponsorship conversation is so interesting to me because it's such a relevant piece of events, right? And it makes them
Yeah.
go in a lot of ways. My thought on a lot of it is like, I mean, there's an ecosystem at a third party event. Like, and if the associations don't recognize the ecosystem, like they're missing. And like, yes, they have to get attendees and they have to have the association. But like when you're talking sponsors and exhibitors and the dollars that are being pumped in, they have to find a way to connect these people to the attendees. You have to find
Yeah.
a way to make it work for everybody.